Welcome to the deep dive. You've sent us some fascinating stuff to explore this week, really focused on that journey from, just wanting something to actually making it happen.
Right. How do we bridge that gap?
Exactly, that gap between desire and, well, achievement.
And today we're diving deep into a really crucial part of that process. We're looking at Chapter 7, sometimes called Organized Planning.
Or the crystallization of desire into action.
Right. Or even the sixth step to riches. Basically, this is where we shift gears. It's about moving past just wishing
Uh-huh.
and actually starting to map out a concrete way to get there.
Right, it feels like this chapter moves from the abstract to the tangible. It's less about the what and much more about the how.
Exactly. And there are really two main blueprints laid out here. First, how you build practical plans, specifically for accumulating wealth.
Okay.
And second, some surprisingly detailed ideas for marketing your own personal services effectively.
And running through all that practical advice is this powerful idea that big achievements rarely happen in a vacuum, right?
That's a huge theme. We're going to unpack why collaboration is so vital and look at this concept of the mastermind alliance. It's presented as key.
Okay, let's start where the chapter starts. It reminds us, it all kicks off with desire, that initial spark,
Mm-hmm.
but then straight away, it pushes towards the next step,
Yeah.
using your imagination. That's where those desires start taking shape, where you begin seeing potential plans.
Precisely. And it ties this directly back to those 6 steps we talked about in a previous deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
Forming a concrete plan isn't just suggested, it's framed as the absolutely essential next move after defining your desire.
You can't just, hold the wish. You need a
You
strategy.
need a pathway forward, yeah.
And the very first piece of that strategy, especially for wealth building, is something the chapter's really clear on. You must ally yourself with a group.
Yes, no ambiguity there. This is the foundation of the mastermind principle. Now, it says the full details come later, but the immediate message is strong.
Super strong.
If your goal involves organized planning for wealth, connecting with others to create and execute those plans isn't just a good idea.
It's essential, like the bedrock,
Exactly, the
Yeah.
bedrock of the whole process.
which makes intuitive sense, pooling skills, different perspectives.
Right.
But the chapter also brings up a really critical point about this alliance. It has to be mutually beneficial. It's not just about what you get.
Yes. Before you even start building this mastermind group, the text stresses how vital it is to figure out what specific advantages you can offer each member in return.
For their cooperation, yeah.
It's basic human interaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
People don't just work together indefinitely without getting something back. Reciprocal value.
And it clarifies that doesn't always mean money, right?
Anything at all. It could be your unique skills, your contacts, your insights, anything that genuinely adds value to the group and the goal.
So the key is thinking consciously about what you bring to the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How does it benefit the whole team?
Okay, so you've got your group, you know what you offer. Then the chapter gives practical guidelines on how this alliance should actually work. First up, regular meetings.
Yeah, it gets specific. At least twice a week initially, maybe more if possible.
Wow, that's frequent.
It is. And the whole point of these meetings is for the group to jointly refine and perfect the plans. It's an ongoing thing,
An iterative process.
a collaborative effort to make the plans as strong as they can be.
And it's not just what you plan, but how you plan it. The atmosphere matters. The chapter really hammers home the need for perfect harmony within the group.
Oh, absolutely critical. It says, point blank, that failing to maintain harmony can directly lead to the failure of the entire mastermind principle.
That's a strong statement.
It really is.
Oh.
The collective intelligence, the energy, it just can't work properly if there's discord or conflict. It shows how delicate, effective collaboration can be.
Which leads nicely into this idea of aiming for faultless plans. For big goals, the plans need to be as near perfect as possible.
Right. And this is where that collective wisdom of the mastermind really comes in.
Because no single person has all the answers.
Exactly. The chapter argues that no individual, no matter how smart or experienced, has everything needed. The knowledge, the ability, the imagination to guarantee accumulating great wealth alone.
So you need to tap into multiple minds.
Yes, to create those truly comprehensive, faultless plans. It even mentions that historically, successful people have always done this, consciously or not. Collaborative planning.
So even if I think I have a brilliant idea, the process is to put it through the ringer with the group. Test it, improve it.
That's the idea. Joint creation and approval. Your initial spark might be yours, but the plan itself needs to be checked, rigorously reviewed, and ultimately approved by everyone in the alliance.
Leveraging that collective
You
intelligence.
find weaknesses, blind spots, ways to make it better before you act.
Okay, but what happens when those plans, even carefully crafted by the group, just don't work out? Because setbacks happen, right?
That's a super crucial point and very practical. The chapter stresses this iterative nature of planning and the absolute need for persistence when things go wrong.
Don't give up on the goal.
Exactly. If Plan A fails, don't ditch the goal, replace Plan A with Plan B. If B fails, analyze why, create Plan C, and keep going.
Until you find a plan that works.
Right.
Mm.
And the text says this is exactly where most people fail. They lack the persistence to keep creating new plans when the old ones don't deliver.
It really draws a line between temporary defeat, a signal to adjust, and permanent failure, which is giving up.
Precisely. Failing plans aren't about you being inadequate or the goal being impossible. They just mean that specific plan wasn't sound.
So setbacks are learning opportunities.
Invaluable ones. They give you feedback to build better plans. Think about the Thomas Edison example used in the chapter.
The light bulb.
Yeah, thousands of attempts. It's the classic example of temporary defeat, met with persistent replanning, leading to massive success.
And it hits hard on the idea that intellect alone isn't enough. You need practical, workable plans, no matter how smart you are.
Absolutely. Temporary defeat just means the plan was unsound, not the goal. It's a prompt to examine, learn, and rebuild your strategy.
It uses Henry Ford as an example too, right? Saying his success wasn't just superior intellect,
but sticking to a sound, practical plan. And it contrasts him with potentially more educated people who lacked that crucial element.
Yeah.
The right plan applied consistently.
And it goes further, saying your achievement level is basically limited by how sound your plans are.
Yes, and then there's the cautionary tale of Samuel Insull. Built a huge fortune, then lost it. Why?
Because he switched to unsound plans during the Depression.
Exactly. Shows how a temporary defeat can become failure if you don't have the persistence to get back to sound principles.
This whole section really boils down to mental fortitude, doesn't it? Not quitting when things get tough.
Absolutely. The chapter says very powerfully that no one is truly beaten until they quit in their own mind.
That's potent.
It highlights the importance of a resilient mindset, believing you can succeed, even when it's rocky. It mentions James J. Hill and his railroad struggles.
And Ford's later setbacks, too.
Right. Examples of people navigating temporary defeats by creating new plans and just sticking with it.
And it kind of prepares you, saying expect these temporary defeats. They're almost inevitable for big goals.
Yeah, don't be surprised. See it as a signal, a prompt to revise the plan.
Not a sign the goal is impossible.
Exactly. It's feedback. Go back to the drawing board, figure out what went wrong, adjust, and go again with a better approach. It's part of the journey.
Then comes that really punchy line, a quitter never wins and a winner never quits.
Memorable, isn't it? The chapter even suggests writing it down, looking at it daily.
As a constant motivator.
Yeah, underscoring that fundamental need for perseverance. And linking back to the mastermind. It advises choosing allies carefully. Find people who also have that resilient mindset, people who don't get easily discouraged by setbacks.
People who won't fold at the first sign of trouble.
Exactly. You need that shared determination.
And it wraps up this section on wealth planning by tackling that old idea. You need money to make money.
Right. It directly challenges that. It argues that a strong, clear desire, when transformed into action through these principles, that's the real driver.
Desire is the catalyst.
Yes. It reframes money as more passive, like inert matter that responds to the call of strong desire backed by solid plans.
So it's less about starting capital, more about the desire and the plan attracting the resources.
That's the shift in perspective it offers. Burning desire plus a well-thought-out plan are the essential starting ingredients.
Okay, so that covers the planning for wealth side pretty thoroughly. Then the chapter pivots to the second big theme, planning the sale of your personal services. This feels relevant to almost everyone, right?
Absolutely. Whether you want a fortune or just career advancement, understanding how to market your skills is crucial.
Especially for leadership aspirants.
Yes, the chapter positions this as particularly valuable for anyone aiming for leadership.
And just like with wealth, it stresses that marketing your services needs intelligent planning, especially if you're starting out and your main asset is your expertise.
It's fundamental. The chapter points out most great fortunes started with compensation for services or selling ideas.
Right. If you don't have property or capital, what else can you offer besides your skills, knowledge, ideas?
Exactly. It boils down to that.
Which then leads to this basic choice, leader or follower, and it's pretty direct about the difference in compensation.
Very direct. It says followers can't realistically expect leader-level pay, though many do. It's about understanding your role, its value, and the potential that comes with leadership.
But it's careful not to say being a follower is bad.
Right
Right.
on. Not inherently disgraceful.
Yeah.
It suggests staying a follower indefinitely without ambition isn't commendable. And it makes the insightful point that many great leaders started as intelligent followers.
Learning the ropes first.
Exactly. Following instructions, learning from the leader, being part of a team, often prerequisites for becoming a good leader yourself. An intelligent follower learns valuable skills by observing.
So what are the qualities that help someone make that leap from follower to successful leader? The chapter lists 11 key attributes.
Yes, a detailed profile. First is unwavering courage, based on self-knowledge and knowing your field. Followers won't trust a leader who lacks confidence.
Makes sense. Second is self-control. Can't lead others if you can't manage yourself. Sets the example.
Third, a keen sense of justice. Fairness is vital for respect and loyalty.
Fourth, definiteness of decision. Leaders need to be decisive, avoid wavering. Uncertainty breeds doubt.
And closely linked, fifth is definiteness of plans. Leaders don't just decide, they plan the work and work the plan. The chapter uses the analogy of a ship without a rudder if there's no plan.
Aimlessly drifting.
Okay.
Sixth is the habit of doing more than paid for. Going the extra mile is part of leadership.
Seventh, a pleasing personality. Being slovenly or careless undermines respect, which is essential.
Eighth is sympathy and understanding. Connecting with followers, understanding their issues.
Ninth, mastery of detail. Knowing the ins and outs of your position and your team's work.
10th, willingness to assume full responsibility. Not just for your actions, but for your followers' mistakes too. No blame shifting.
And finally, 11th, cooperation. Understanding its importance and inspiring teamwork. True leadership needs power, and power comes from willing cooperation.
The chapter then makes a big distinction between two leadership types, by consent versus by force.
Yes, and it's very clear. Leadership by consent, where followers willingly follow, is far more effective and lasting.
History backs that up, doesn't it? Dictators, tyrants, they eventually fall.
Exactly. People won't follow force indefinitely. The chapter argues we're in a new era demanding cooperation, mutual respect.
It contrasts historical force leaders like Napoleon or the Kaiser with the need for this new brand based on consent, and suggests this shift is happening in business and labor too.
Right, and it loops back, saying this new leadership must embody those 11 factors we just discussed.
It even hints the recent depression showed a lack of this kind of leadership, creating an opportunity now.
A huge opportunity for those who can cultivate and demonstrate these qualities.
Okay, so we know what makes a good leader, what
Yeah.
makes a leader fail. The chapter then dives into 10 major causes of leadership failure, a checklist of what not to do.
Exactly. Understanding the pitfalls is just as important. First cause, inability to organize details. Efficient leaders aren't too busy, they organize and delegate.
Second, unwillingness to render humble service. Great leaders do what they'd ask followers to do.
Third, expecting pay just for what they know, not what they do with it. The world pays for results, for action.
Fourth, fear of competition from followers. Good leaders train understudies, empower their team, it multiplies effectiveness.
Fifth, lack of imagination. Hinders dealing with emergencies, creating innovative plans.
Sixth, selfishness. Taking all the credit breeds resentment. Great leaders give credit, understanding the power of recognition.
Seventh, intemperance. In eating, drinking habits, it destroys respect and vitality.
Eighth, disloyalty to trust, to associates, a major cause of failure everywhere.
Ninth, emphasis on authority. Real leaders lead by encouragement, inspiration, not fear or pulling rank. That's leadership by force again.
And 10th, emphasis on title. Competent leaders don't need to flash their title for respect. Their ability speaks for itself.
The chapter warns that any one of these can cause failure and urges self-examination against this list.
After covering leadership success and failure, it points out some specific fertile fields where this new kind of leadership is really needed. Opportunity zones, basically.
Yeah, sectors where effective, trustworthy leadership is lacking. Politics is first needing leaders to tackle issues like taxation and industry burdens with integrity.
Banking is another, needing reform and restored public trust.
Industry needs leaders focused on the human equation, not just profits, moving beyond exploitation.
Religion, suggesting future leaders need to address temporal, everyday needs too.
The profession's law, medicine, especially education, needing more focus on practical application of knowledge.
And finally, journalism, calling for leaders committed to unbiased reporting, free from special interests or sensationalism.
These are presented as areas where demonstrating this new, cooperative, ethical leadership style can lead to significant achievement and positive impact.
Okay, so for anyone inspired to step up, the chapter gets very practical again. When and how to apply for a position. Real nuts and bolts advice.
Yeah, this section is packed with actionable strategies for marketing your services effectively. It starts with the best channels to make contact.
Like employment bureaus, but be selective, right? Choose reputable ones with proven results.
Advertising is another route. Classifies for basic roles, display ads may be professionally written for executive positions.
And personal letters of application are key. Typed, hand-signed, and always with a comprehensive brief of qualifications, ideally professionally prepared.
Networking through personal contacts is especially good for executive roles. Less like peddling your services.
And if applying in person, always have a written summary of qualifications ready for them.
Then it really digs into what needs to be in that written brief. It compares it to a lawyer preparing a case. Get expert help if you need it.
So what goes in? Education first, schools, specializations, why you chose them. Briefly.
Then experience, detailed description, former employers, roles, and crucially, highlighting skills and accomplishments relevant to the specific job you want.
References are vital. Include copies of letters from employers, teachers, prominent people vouching for you.
A recent photo helps personalize it.
And importantly, always apply for a specific position, never just a position that looks unfocused.
And here's the core. Clearly state why you're qualified for that role. Detailed reasons. The chapter calls this the most important part.
Then there's that bold suggestion. Offer to work on probation. Maybe a week or month, unpaid, just to prove your value.
Yeah, it's framed as showing extreme confidence in your ability.
It shows confidence, trust in their fairness, and determination to get the job. And if you excel, you'll likely get paid for that time anyway.
Exactly. And finally, the brief must show you know their business, that you've done your research, understand their challenges, have genuine interest.
The bottom line is, the best prepared case wins. Be thorough, neat, persuasive. It shares stories of people getting hired, just based on the brief, no interview needed.
It even gives tips on binding and lettering it professionally, personalizing it for each employer. That brief is your salesperson when you're not there. Make a strong first impression.
And use copies of it with agencies or ads to amplify your reach.
Then it shifts from reacting to openings to being proactive. How to get the exact position you desire, even if it doesn't exist yet.
Step 1. Decide exactly what job you want, maybe even invent it.
Step 2. Choose the company or individual you want to work for.
3. Study them thoroughly. Policies, people, potential for advancement.
4. Analyze yourself honestly. What talent, skills, ideas can you offer that specific employer?
5. Forget about just getting a job. Focus on what you can give.
6. Write down your plan, the value you offer. Maybe get help from a good writer. 7. Present that value-focused plan directly to the person with authority to act on it. Trust they'll recognize the value.
The chapter argues this proactive approach saves years of potentially unsatisfying work and speeds up advancement.
It definitely requires more upfront effort, but the payoff is potentially huge.
This leads nicely into the next section, the new way of marketing services. It talks about a fundamental shift in the employer-employee dynamic.
Yes, it declares jobs are being replaced by partnerships. The old rule of gold, pure profit focus, is yielding to the golden rule.
Seeing the relationship as a three-way partnership. Employer, employee, and the public they serve.
Exactly. Both employer and employee are seen as fellow workers serving the public efficiently. The old adversarial bargaining at the public's expense, highlighted by the Depression, is fading. The public is the ultimate employer.
It gives examples. Railroads, streetcars learning the hard way about customer service, banks, grocery stores becoming more courteous, service-oriented.
Courtesy and service are the new watchwords. And this applies even more strongly when you're marketing your own services.
It uses the gas meter reader example. Their attitude changed. And the coal industry decline linked to greed and poor service, opening doors for alternatives.
Right. It connects this to reaping what you sow, suggesting the Depression was partly a result of a collective habit of trying to get without giving adequate service.
And it lands on this point. Your individual economic status follows the same cause and effect principle as businesses and economies.
Which flows right into the QQS, rating a formula for effective, lasting service marketing.
QQS. Quality, quantity, spirit.
Exactly. Quality. Doing every detail efficiently. always improving. Quantity, habitually giving all the service you're capable of, aiming to increase it. Spirit, the habit of agreeable, harmonious conduct that fosters cooperation.
And it stresses quality and quantity aren't enough alone. The spirit is crucial for your value, pay, and job security.
It mentions Andrew Carnegie's emphasis on harmony. He dismissed skilled people if they lacked that positive spirit. A pleasing personality helps deliver service in the right spirit, and sometimes makes up for minor flaws in Q or Q. But pleasing conduct itself, irreplaceable.
Okay, so how do you put a value on all this? The chapter talks about the capital value of your services.
It says if you're selling services, you're basically a merchant, subject to the same economic rules as someone selling goods.
And this new service model forces employers and employees into partnership, considering the public interest.
Right. It declares the era of the aggressive go-getter is over, replaced by the service-oriented go-giver. High-pressure, self-serving tactics aren't sustainable.
So how do you estimate your capital value?
It gives a formula. Take your annual income, multiply by 16 2/3. That assumes your income is about a 6% return on your inherent capital value, your skills and brains.
And it argues that competent, well-marketed brains are better capital than money.
Because they don't depreciate, can't be stolen, and money is useless without them.
Now, the chapter takes a bit of a sobering turn with the 30 major causes of failure, addressing why so many people try but don't succeed.
Yeah, it mentions analyzing thousands of failures and seeing recurring patterns. It then lists these 30 common reasons people fail and urges honest self-assessment against them.
Okay, let's run through them quickly. 1, unfavorable heredity may be the hardest to overcome, but Mastermind can help. 2, lack of a well-defined purpose.
3, lack of ambition beyond mediocrity. 4, insufficient education but overcomable through applied knowledge.
5, lack of self-discipline. 6, ill health, often masterable causes like diet, negative thoughts, lack of exercise.
7, unfavorable childhood environment. 8, procrastination, old man procrastination.
9, lack of persistence, good starters, poor finishers. 10, negative personality repels cooperation.
11, lack of controlled sexual urge needs transmutation. 12, uncontrolled desire for something for nothing, gambling.
13, lack of decisive power indecision. 14, one or more of the 6 basic fears.
15, wrong choice of marriage mate kills ambition. 16, overcaution is bad as undercaution. Life involves chance.
17, wrong choice of business associates, we emulate them. 18, superstition and prejudice forms of fear, ignorance.
19, wrong choice of vocation can't succeed if you hate it. 20, lack of concentrated effort, jack of all trades.
21, habit of indiscriminate spending leads to fear of poverty. 22, lack of enthusiasm can't persuade without it.
23, intolerance, closed mind, stops learning. 24, intemperance, overindulgence in anything.
25, inability to cooperate, common reason for job loss. 26, power not earned through self-effort, inherited wealth can be a handicap.
27, intentional dishonesty, consequences eventually catch up. 28, egotism and vanity alienates others.
29, guessing instead of thinking, relying on opinions, not facts. 30, lack of capital, especially for new businesses. And 31 is an open slot for personal causes.
Phew, it's a long list. And the recommendation is SCARC. Analyze yourself honestly, maybe with someone who knows you well, because self-perception is hard. Know thyself.
It uses that anecdote of the young man with crazy salary expectations showing self-ignorance, lack of a clear aim.
And highlights the difference between wanting more and being worth more. Value comes from rendering useful service.
To help with that know thyself part, it provides 28 questions you should answer, an annual self-inventory.
Yes, like a business taking stock. Essential for effective service marketing and growth. Aim to reduce faults, increase virtues each year, do it end of year to inform New Year's resolutions.
And the questions cover everything. Progress on goals, QQS of service, procrastination, personality, persistence, decisions, fears, caution, relationships, concentration, open-mindedness, service improvement, intemperance, egotism, respect earned, basis of opinions, budgeting, use of time, guilt, exceeding expectations, fairness, would you buy your own services, vocation fit, client satisfaction, and an overall rating on success principles.
It really pushes for honest answers, maybe validated by someone trusted.
Okay, wow. That brings us to the end of the core Chapter 7 material, doesn't it? We've really dug into the main ideas, stories, insights, mastermind, leadership, failure causes, self-analysis. It's all there.
Absolutely, a chapter packed with practical stuff for planning and selling services.
But it doesn't stop there. The chapter then asks the logical next question. Okay, where do I apply all this? Where are the opportunities to accumulate riches? And it focuses specifically on the U.S.
Right. It starts by highlighting the huge degree of freedom in the U.S. Thought, action, education, religion, politics, business, property, residence, marriage, opportunity, travel, food, aspirations. It argues the U.S. uniquely guarantees this broad spectrum.
And it makes it tangible, right? Showing the benefits for the average family. Affordable, diverse food, that breakfast example. Comfortable shelter, decent clothing. It emphasizes this isn't propaganda, just observation.
Yeah, when it mentions things like cars, secure property rights, then it identifies the source of these blessings as capital.
Not just money, but organized, intelligent groups using resources effectively for public good and profit. Scientists, educators, innovators. Calls capitalists the brains of civilization.
And stresses money is useless without those brains guiding it. It uses that breakfast example again. Imagine trying to source and deliver all that individually without organized capital's infrastructure. Impossible.
It really paints a picture of the vast, often invisible systems capitalism provides.
And describes capitalists as people with vision, faith, enthusiasm, motivated by building and service, which earns them riches, while acknowledging they're often criticized.
It reiterates the book's aim, a practical philosophy for wealth, and says analyzing capitalism serves two purposes, showing you need to adapt to the system to succeed in it and countering negative portrayals.
It argues the U.S. was built on capital, and anyone seeking riches here benefits from that framework, directly or indirectly.
It acknowledges the criticism of Wall Street and big business, even from some officials, and suggests this negativity during the Depression actually hurt recovery by undermining the system.
And it critiques the idea of getting rich by demanding more pay for less work, or just relying on relief, while defending the freedom to hold those beliefs.
But asserts true, sustainable wealth comes from rendering useful service, governed by the impartial law of economics.
A law beyond political manipulation, demanding and accounting for getting without giving. It suggests big business largely respects this law for survival.
It concludes this part saying the U.S. offers ample freedom and opportunity for honest wealth accumulation through service. If you don't like the system, you're free to leave. Hunt where the game is plentiful.
And then it throws out those compelling stats about spending on non-essentials, lipstick, cigarettes, movies, gum, billions spent annually.
As evidence of the sheer scale of economic activity and opportunity.
Right. Producing and marketing, all that stuff, creates jobs, fuels more activity, more opportunity, and American freedom lets anyone participate with wealth proportional to the value of their service.
But again, the caution. The law of economics means no something for nothing.
It emphasizes this law is immutable, like gravity. Ignoring it has consequences, potentially leading to authoritarian controlled dictatorship. It hopes understanding prevents that.
It also warns about politics rewarding votes with public funds, debt for future generations, and collective bargaining defying economics, leading to business failure.
And uses the Great Depression as the ultimate harsh lesson in the power of economic law. It wraps up saying these observations come from 25+ years of analyzing successful and unsuccessful people.
So, wrapping up our deep dive on Chapter 7, we've hit on organized planning, the power of the mastermind, leadership traits, failure pitfalls, and that crucial QQS formula, quality, quantity, and spirit of service.
Key takeaways for sure. And that self-analysis process really stands out as vital for ongoing improvement.
It really does. That annual inventory seems like a cornerstone practice.
Ultimately, it feels like the chapter brings it all back to understanding and working with the fundamental laws of success planning economics while recognizing and seizing the opportunities within the existing system.
The challenge and the potential reward is actually applying these principles in your own life, starting now.
Exactly. It's about taking these ideas off the page and putting them into action.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has given everyone some valuable insights and practical guidance for their own journey. Thanks for joining us.